Hello and welcome back. This week we'll look at the European expansion into the Americas in the 1500s. We'll be examining how Spain, one of Europe's poorest and least developed countries in the 15th century, established an enormous empire across the Atlantic Ocean in the Americas. Within a few short years of Christopher Columbus's first landing on the island of Hispaniola in 1492, Spanish conquistadores had spread throughout Central and South America, defeating two very powerful Native American civilizations and seizing their kingdoms. We'll also be pondering the question of how a small force of Europeans could travel halfway across the globe to uncharted territories and defeat large, established empires. There are a number of questions that, as historians, we need to address. First, who was it that lived in the Americas prior to European arrival? Second, what motivated an unexceptional country such as Spain to send ships across treacherous seas in a risky voyage of discovery? Last, and perhaps most important, how was it remotely possible for the Spanish to conquer the Americas? Spanish military parties rarely numbered more than 500 men. Yet, they defeated Aztec and Incan armies as large as 60,000. Was it careful planning, good fortune, or did other factors enable their conquest? Let's start by addressing the first question. Who lived in America prior to the arrival of Europeans? Humans seem to have come much later to the Americas than Africa, Europe, or indeed any other continent except Australia. The first Americans were immigrants, no surprise there, Mongoloid tribes who crossed into North America via the Bering Land Bridge from Asia some 30,000 years ago. They migrated south over succeeding millennia. Though initially hunters and gatherers, early Americans eventually developed agriculture. Maize, or corn, began to be cultivated in Mexico about 5000 BCE. Potatoes appeared further south in present-day Peru about this time as well. Both foods became the staples that made possible the establishment of non-nomadic agricultural civilizations, especially in Central and South America. These civilizations shared similar gods and customs, including the ritual of human sacrifice. The first of these agricultural civilizations was the Olmec Empire in eastern Mexico near the Bay of Campeche. They developed stoneworking technologies, built pyramids, and used hieroglyphics, pictorial writing, to communicate. The Olmecs disappeared around 300 BCE for reasons not yet established. Their demise occurred as the Mayan Empire rose. Also located in eastern Mexico, on the Yucatan Peninsula, the Mayans emerged around 100 CE as a highly skilled and technologically advanced civilization. They constructed temples and pyramids nearly as large as those built in ancient Egypt. They developed a remarkably complex and accurate calendar that formed the basis of their religious rituals. They also developed higher-order mathematics using a vigesimal or base 20 number system. Their written language was hieroglyphic and composed by scribes, usually members of the Mayan priesthood. The Mayans too disappeared, giving way to a larger and much more powerful empire, the Aztecs. Originating in central Mexico, the Aztecs came to prominence over the 150 years prior to the arrival of the Spanish, expanding to control most of modern-day Mexico. They established a military, tributary empire that depended on the labor of conquered tribes. The empire's capital, the city of Tenochtitlan, rivaled cities in Europe and Asia in size and infrastructure. Temples and pyramids filled the city, and an aqueduct brought water from the springs at Chapultepec, miles away. In fact, the first Spanish to see the Aztec capital described it as surpassing Rome or Constantinople in magnificence. Aztec political and religious leaders were elected. They oversaw the empire's expansive lands, allocating influence to smaller clans in exchange for labor and military service. Political control over the empire's subjects was reinforced by the state religion, which included sacrificial rituals. Aztec gods required the blood of victims to grow new crops. Large public sacrifice ceremonies included decapitations, flayings, and the tearing out of victims' hearts while still alive. In 1489, 20,000 people were sacrificed at the dedication of the new Great Pyramid of Tenochtitlan. To the south of the Aztec dominions, an even larger and more powerful empire arose to control most of western South America. Centered in present-day Peru, the Inca Empire was born in 1200 CE when the first Incan emperor was crowned. As with the Aztecs, the Incas expanded through violent conquest. By the time of Spanish arrival, the Incas controlled roughly 720,000 square kilometers from northern Ecuador to central Chile. The Incan Empire was the most advanced civilization in the Western Hemisphere at the time of Columbus's arrival in Hispaniola in 1492. The Incas developed advanced technologies for mining gold and silver. They had bronze-bladed hoes for agriculture, sophisticated weaving, and highly skilled dry masonry, building temples and walls using huge, perfectly fitted blocks. Perhaps most impressive were the Incan medical surgery techniques. Incan surgeons were capable of carrying out difficult and dangerous operations, including cranial operations on anesthetized or hypnotized patients. The empire was organized by a highly centralized, despotic political structure. Incas were the dominant caste, and the Incan emperor, who was considered a god, enjoyed unlimited power over his subjects. The empire was laced with over 16,000 kilometers of roads, traveled by teams of runners in all weather conditions. To maintain their rule, Incas forcibly relocated conquered peoples from their ancestral lands and replaced them with more pliant tribes. With their brutal dominance, the Incas provoked widespread discontent among the peoples they conquered, turning them into natural allies for the Spanish. And it is to the Spanish that we will turn in our next segment. Until then, best wishes.